What happens when a man who hasn't felt anything in over a year suddenly feels everything? That's exactly what Kang Daewon wanted to know. Because for the past 14 months, his body had been silent. No desire, no warmth, no spark of connection that reminded him he was still human, still alive in any way that mattered. Until her. It happened in the Silver Line Gallery on a Thursday afternoon in Seoul, the kind of autumn day when the light slants gold through tall windows and makes everything look softer than it really is. Zuri Kamara balanced on a stepladder, adjusting an oil painting that had been hung slightly crooked. Paint-stained jeans, cream linen shirt with the sleeves rolled to her elbows. Her movements were practiced, unhurried, the confidence of someone who'd done this 100 times before. The gallery smelled of linseed oil and fresh plaster, that particular scent of art spaces that mixes creativity with newness. Outside, rain began its gentle tap-tap-tap against the tall windows, promising a storm by evening. She didn't hear him enter. The door had barely made a sound. Daewon moved like a man avoiding surveillance cameras, which he was. Black cap pulled low over dark eyes, surgical mask hiding half his face. His coat hung loose over shoulders that had once carried the weight of an underground empire. Before betrayal, before 6 weeks of captivity, before his body forgot how to respond to anything but fear and pain. He'd come to see the exhibition because a contact had recommended it, because he was trying to remember what it felt like to care about beauty, because his therapist had suggested engaging with art might help him reconnect with dormant emotions. He didn't expect to find her. Daewon paused in front of a landscape painting, a seascape actually, waves crashing against rocks at sunset. He studied it with the intensity of a man searching for meaning in brushstrokes. As he leaned closer, Zuri shifted her weight on the ladder above him, adjusting the wire on a different frame. The painting she was working on tilted suddenly. Her hand shot out to steady it and grazed his wrist, skin to skin. 1 second of contact, maybe less. Daewon's breath seized in his throat like someone had closed a fist around his lungs. Lightning exploded through his chest, racing down his spine into every nerve ending that had been dormant, silent, dead for over a year. His knees buckled, his whole body erupted, as if someone had run an electrical current through him, waking every sleeping cell at once. He grabbed the wall to keep from falling, his body responding, not with pain, not with the phantom echo of trauma, with raw, undeniable, terrifyingly alive want. His pulse hammered so hard he could hear it in his ears. Heat flooded through him, pooling low in his gut, spreading outward until his skin felt too tight. For 14 months he'd been numb, a ghost walking through the world. And now, in 1 second, he was drowning in sensation. Zuri glanced down, startled by his sudden movement. "Oh, I'm so sorry. Did I hurt you?" Her voice was deep, warm, textured, like honey poured over gravel, like comfort and strength mixed together. It was the same voice that had whispered to him in a relief tent in Busan 14 months ago, when his wrists were raw from restraints and his mind had nearly shattered under interrogation. He hadn't seen her face then, only her eyes above a medical mask, only her hands, steady and gentle, wrapping gauze around wounds that should have killed him. He'd spent months trying to find her, searching through volunteer organization records, haunting medical relief databases, Desperate to know if she was real or just a fever dream his broken mind had conjured. And now, standing 3 feet away in a Seoul art gallery, he couldn't breathe. Daewin stepped back instantly, as if her touch had scalded him, which, in a way, it had. His pulse hammered against his ribs like it was trying to escape. Without a single word, without meeting her confused gaze, he turned and walked straight toward the door, out into the rain that had begun to fall harder. Behind him, Zuri stood frozen on the ladder, one hand still extended. Her fingertips tingled where their skin had touched. A warmth that hadn't been there before spread up her arm, settling somewhere near her heart. She'd felt this once before, months ago, in a relief tent, with a man who'd looked at her like she was the last thread keeping him tethered to life. The man who'd just fled her gallery was wearing different clothes, no longer broken and bleeding. But she knew those eyes. Zuri's apartment was small and tidy, the kind of space that spoke of someone who spent most of their time elsewhere. One window overlooking a narrow alley where cats sometimes fought at night. A kitchen counter crowded with art books stacked beside instant noodle packages, and a French press she used every morning. A shelf lined with hand-carved wooden figures her mother had sent from West Africa. Elephants, birds, a woman carrying water. She sat cross-legged on her bed at 9 p.m., phone propped against a pillow. Her mother's face filled the screen, silver locks tied back with a colorful wrap, reading glasses perched on her nose. The warm lighting of her living room in Dakar glowing behind her. "You're distracted tonight, my daughter," her mother said in French, then switched to English. "I can see it in your eyes." "Just tired, Mama. Long day at the gallery." Her mother tilted her head in that knowing way mothers have, the one that sees through every deflection. "Who did you meet that made your face so red? You have that look." Zuri laughed, but it came out shaky. Heat crept up her neck. "Nobody, I promise. Just hung some heavy paintings." "Paintings don't make you blush like a schoolgirl." Her mother's expression softened, becoming more serious. "You're still looking for him, aren't you? The man from Busan, the one you saved." Zuri's smile faded. She pulled her knees to her chest, wrapping her free arm around them. "I don't even know his name, Mama, just his voice, the way he looked at me, like I was the only light in a very dark room." "Then maybe it's time to stop searching, my love. You did your job. You saved him. What happens to him after that? That's his journey, not yours." But Zuri couldn't let go. That night in the relief camp, when she'd treated a man who was more ghost than human, who'd been so badly hurt she wasn't sure he'd make it through the night, something fundamental had changed in her. She'd felt his pulse under her fingertips, weak but steady, watched him choose to keep breathing when it would have been easier, safer even, to let go. She'd made him a promise that night. "You'll feel again. I promise you'll feel again." She needed to know he'd kept living, that her promise hadn't been empty. "I'll be careful, Mama. I always am." Her mother sighed, the kind of sigh that carried a lifetime of worrying about a daughter who'd always been drawn to helping the broken. "I know you will. You've always had a healer's heart. Just don't forget to protect it while you're busy mending everyone else's." After the call ended, Zuri sat in darkness, listening to rain drum against her window. She rubbed her wrist where the stranger had touched her, where warmth still seemed to linger beneath her skin. Restless, strange, awake in a way she hadn't been in months. She thought about the way he'd looked at her in the gallery, not with attraction exactly, with something deeper, recognition, desperation, like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. She'd seen that look before, in the relief camp, in a man who'd barely been holding on to life. What happened to you after I saved you? She wondered. Where did you go? Why did it take 14 months for you to find me? She couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just found what she'd been searching for, and lost it again in the same breath. She pulled out her laptop, opening the folder she'd created months ago. Files from the medical relief organization she'd volunteered with. Intake forms, treatment notes, photographs of the camp. She'd been through these documents dozens of times, searching for any clue about the man she'd treated. Most victims of organized violence never gave their real names, especially not men like him. The ones who arrived with the kind of injuries that spoke of interrogation, of torture, of things most people couldn't survive. But she had his voice, recorded in her phone from that night when she dictated notes for the medical team. She found the audio file, pressed play. Will I ever feel normal again? Or is this all that's left? Her own voice, steady despite her exhaustion. You'll feel again, I promise. Zuri closed her eyes, letting the recording play again and again. She knew that voice. She'd heard it today. The man in the gallery, the one who'd fled like she'd burned him. It was him. If this story already has you hooked, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. Across the city, in a penthouse apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline, Daewon stood in his shower. Water as hot as he could stand pounded his shoulders, creating steam so thick he could barely see the tile wall in front of him. But his body still burned, not from the water, from her touch, from 1 second of skin-to-skin contact that had detonated something inside him he'd thought was dead forever. He pressed his forehead against the cool tile, hands braced on either side, trying to calm his racing heart, trying to understand what had just happened. For 14 months, nothing. No physical response to anything, not to attraction, not even to fear. His body had shut down completely after what the Red Wolves had done to him. His therapist had explained it: trauma response, dissociation, the mind's way of protecting itself by disconnecting from physical sensation. He'd accepted it, learned to live as a ghost, told himself maybe it was permanent, maybe this was who he was now. And then Zuri had touched him, and he'd felt everything. Jinwoo found him an hour later, sitting on the rooftop terrace, wrapped in a blanket despite the cold, staring at his hands like they belonged to someone else. You're going to catch pneumonia, Jinwoo said, sitting down beside him. He'd been Daewon's head of security for 5 years, and more importantly, his closest friend. Your body... He paused, choosing words carefully. It really reacted. After all this time? Daewon's answer came slowly, pulled from somewhere deep. Yes. That's good news, progress. It means you're healing. No. Daewon's voice flattened into something cold. It means I'm exposed, vulnerable. It means there's a trigger now, something, someone who can make me lose control. He stood, pacing to the railing. The city sprawled below them, millions of lights against the darkness, each one representing a life he'd once understood how to navigate, before everything changed. I remember her, he said quietly, not looking at Jinwoo. From the relief camp in Busan. right after they finally released me. After the Red Wolves were finished. Jinwoo straightened, suddenly alert. The medical volunteer who treated you? The one you've been trying to find? I only saw her eyes that night. Heard her voice through the fog of pain and sedatives. Daewin's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping. I didn't know her face, but today, when she touched me, my body knew, recognized her instantly, like it had been waiting for her specifically. Then find her again, talk to her, maybe she's the key to what? Daewin turned sharply, eyes flashing with something between anger and fear. Making me weak? Giving the Red Wolves exactly what they need to destroy what's left of me? You know they're still out there, Jinwoo, still watching, still waiting for any leverage they can use. Or maybe, Jinwoo said carefully, she's the key to making you whole again, to getting your life back. Daewin's hands curled into fists, knuckles going white. The fear of losing control had kept him alive these past 14 months. Numbness was armor. Feeling nothing meant nothing could be used against him. No weaknesses, no pressure points. But God, he wanted to feel again. Wanted to be something more than a walking corpse. I can't risk it, he said. If the Red Wolves find out there's someone who affects me like that, they'll use her, hurt her, do to her what they did to me, just to watch me break. Maybe, Jinwoo stood, putting a hand on Daewin's shoulder. Or maybe you're already breaking because you're not letting yourself heal. After Jinwoo left, Daewin stayed on the rooftop until dawn, watching the city wake up. His phone sat in his pocket, heavy with temptation. He could find her. The gallery had her name on file surely. He could go back. He thought about her voice, the way it had wrapped around him like a blanket in that relief tent. You're going to live, I promise. She'd made him believe it when he hadn't believed anything. He thought about her eyes, dark and warm, and seeing him, really seeing him, even when he'd been nothing but broken pieces. He thought about her hands, gentle but strong, the kind of hands that knew how to heal, and he thought about how his body had responded to 1 second of contact, like a match striking tinder, like every dormant cell waking up screaming. If I go back, I put her in danger, he told himself. If I stay away, I stay dead inside. Some choice. But even as he told himself all the reasons he should stay away, he knew they were lies. His body wouldn't let him forget her. Not now, not ever. 3 days passed like 3 years. Daewon tried to stay away, really tried. He threw himself into work, reviewing security protocols, meeting with his remaining business contacts, anything to keep his mind occupied. But every night he dreamed of her voice. Every morning he woke up with his body remembering her touch. On day 3, he broke. He walked into the Silver Line Gallery at dusk when the autumn light turned everything amber and soft. This time he came without the mask, without the hat. If she recognized him, so be it. He needed answers more than he needed anonymity. The gallery was quieter at this hour. Most visitors had left. Soft classical music played from hidden speakers. Zuri was in the back room, visible through the open door, cataloging pieces. Her deep voice murmured into a small recorder, listing titles and artists with careful precision. She looked up, and everything stopped. Her recorder slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a small clatter. Those eyes, dark, haunted, carrying ghosts she recognized. The same eyes that had stared at her from a cot in Busan when she'd whispered, "You're going to live, I promise." It's you, she breathed, the words barely audible. Daewin stayed near the entrance, his body tensed like he might bolt again, but his gaze locked onto hers with desperate intensity that made the air between them feel electric. You recognize me. I never forgot. She took one careful step forward. He tensed visibly, every muscle going taut. The relief camp in Busan, 14 months ago, you'd been... She stopped herself. The scars on his wrists, barely visible now, but she remembered them. The hollowness in his gaze that had slowly filled with light as she'd worked. She'd never asked what they'd done to him, only tried to heal what she could. I didn't know your name then, he said quietly, voice rough with emotion. I only remembered your voice and your eyes. I've been searching for you. Zuri's throat tightened with unexpected emotion. And I only remembered your eyes, your voice, the way you looked at me like I was saving your life. You were. He took a step closer, then stopped as if the air between them was thick as water. I was ready to die that night, had already decided it would be easier than living with what they'd done to me. And then you came in with your steady hands and your calm voice, and you just refused to let me go. I saw something in you, Zuri said softly. Something worth saving, something that wanted to survive, even if you didn't think you did. You saw more than I did. That's what healers do. She smiled, small and sad. We see the person underneath the pain. We see who you could be again if you just kept breathing. He laughed, but the sound held grief. I don't think you knew what you were signing up for when you made me that promise. 10 feet of polished floor separated them. The space hummed with electricity, with everything unsaid. Why did you run the other day? She asked softly, not moving yet, sensing he needed the distance, his hands curled into fists at his sides. Because I had to. Why? He took one step closer, then stopped, as if walking through invisible resistance. His breathing had changed, become shallower. Because when you touched me, when your skin made contact with mine, Zuri moved toward him instinctively, her healer's instinct taking over. Are you okay? You need to sit down. Let me... Don't. The word came out strangled, but she was already closing the distance between them, concern overriding caution. As soon as she came within arm's reach, something changed in him. Daewin's breath hitched audibly. His hand shot out, gripping the wall for support. His knuckles went white with the force of it. Sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the cool temperature. I'm not sure about anything, he managed through gritted teeth. Zuri's professional instincts fully kicked in now. She'd seen trauma responses in the field, panic attacks, dissociation, physical manifestations of psychological pain. You're having a response, it's okay. You're safe here. Just breathe with me. You don't understand. His eyes met hers, dark and intense, and full of something that looked like barely controlled desire. This isn't fear, this isn't panic. Then what is it? Everything. The word came out like a confession. Everything I haven't felt in over a year. It's all coming back at once, and it's overwhelming, and you're the cause, and I don't know how to. He broke off, chest heaving. Zuri stared at him, understanding dawning slowly. Your body is responding to me. My body is only responding to you. He laughed, but it sounded broken. For 14 months, nothing. I thought I was dead inside, and then you touched me and you came back to life. Yes. He looked at her like she was both salvation and destruction. And I don't know whether to thank you or run from you. They stood there, neither moving, both trying to process what this meant. Overhead, a bronze sculpture on the upper shelf began to tilt. Someone, a careless worker, a guest who'd bumped it earlier, had left it poorly secured. Too heavy, too precariously balanced, it tipped. Time seemed to slow. Zuri looked up just as 40 pounds of metal began its plummet toward her head. Her brain registered danger, but her body hadn't caught up yet, still frozen in the moment of revelation with Daewon. Daewon's instincts roared to life before conscious thought. He lunged forward, crossing the distance between them in 2 powerful strides. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her against his chest as he spun them both clear of impact. The sculpture shattered on the floor behind them with a deafening crash that seemed to shake the entire gallery. Pieces of bronze scattered across polished floor, but Daewon didn't release her. Couldn't release her. His arms locked around her body, holding her back flush against him, her head tucked safely beneath his chin. Fire radiated from every single point of contact. Her spine pressed to his torso, her hips cradled against his breath hot and ragged against her neck. His body surged with life, responding with an intensity that stole his breath and his ability to think clearly. Heat pooled low in his gut, spread outward until every nerve ending sang. His heart hammered so hard she must be able to feel it against her back. Zuri felt everything, every tremor running through his powerful frame, every ragged inhale that moved his chest against her, the wild thunder of his pulse, the barely controlled strength in his arms, and something else, something unmistakable, his body responding completely, powerfully, without shame or hesitation. This was want, this was desire. This was life itself, flooding back into limbs that had been dead. She turned slowly in his arms, movements small but deliberate. Their faces ended up inches apart. His arms remained locked around her waist, like releasing her might kill him. Their lips almost touched. She could feel his breath on her mouth, could see the war happening behind his eyes. Desire versus fear. Want versus wisdom. For one breathless second, the entire world held perfectly still. Then Daewon jolted back, as if she'd electrocuted him, pushing her away and stumbling 3 full steps. His back hit the opposite wall. "Don't come near me." His voice cracked with desperation and something darker, need, hunger. Daewon, it's okay? No. He held up a hand like a barrier between them, breathing hard. "It's not okay. You don't understand what you do to me. I can't control it when you're close. My body doesn't listen to my mind anymore." Maybe that's not a bad thing. It is. His eyes were wild now, frightened in a way that broke her heart. Because in my world, losing control gets people hurt, gets people killed. Before she could respond, he was moving toward the exit, leaving her standing alone among shattered bronze and broken possibilities. This time, though, Zuri didn't let him disappear. She grabbed her coat from the back room and followed him into the rain that had begun falling harder. Zuri found him 2 blocks away beneath an overpass, standing in the shelter of concrete while rain poured beyond. "Daewon, wait!" He didn't turn. Rain dripped from his hair where he'd walked through it. "You shouldn't have followed. You should go back to your gallery, to your safe life. Then you shouldn't have saved me." She stepped under the overpass, matching his position. "Talk to me, please." His jaw worked, muscle jumping beneath skin. You don't understand what I am, what I was, what I'm still tangled up in. I know you survived something terrible. I know whatever they did to you nearly destroyed you. Her voice softened with compassion. And I think I know your voice better than you realize. His eyes snapped to hers, dark and intense. After you left the gallery the first time, Zuri continued, I couldn't stop thinking about you, about that moment. So I went home and pulled up every file from my volunteer work, every single record from that month in Busan. She pulled her phone from her pocket with steady hands, opened an audio file. I found this, the intake notes from the night I treated you. You wouldn't give a name. Most patients in your condition don't. But I'd recorded observations for the medical team in case you needed follow-up care. She pressed play. A man's voice, barely audible, roughened by pain. Will I ever feel normal again? Or is this all that's left of me? And her own voice, steady despite bone-deep exhaustion. You'll feel again. I promise you'll feel again. The recording continued. She'd forgotten how much she'd captured that night. His voice again. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Her response. I don't need to know you deserve to live. To know that whatever happened to you doesn't define who you are. A long pause on the recording, then his whisper, what if it does? Her voice, fierce with conviction. Then we change the definition. Daewon's face went pale, actually drained of color. His hand came up to cover his mouth as if holding back emotion. I remember that. I remember you saying that. It was the first time in weeks anyone had suggested I could be more than what they'd made me. That's me. I recognized you the moment you spoke in the gallery that first day. Your voice, your eyes, the way you moved like every muscle hurt. Emotions churned in her chest, relief, fear, hope, all colliding together. I've been searching for months. I needed to know you kept that promise I made you, that you were still alive, that saving you mattered. His hand rose halfway, trembling slightly, as if to touch her face, then dropped back to his side like he didn't trust himself. Zuri, why are you so afraid of me? She whispered. I'm not going to hurt you. I know you won't. His voice fractured down the middle. But I might hurt you, not intentionally, but because you're the only person who makes me feel, and in my world, feeling is the most dangerous thing possible. It creates weakness, leverage, pressure points that enemies can exploit. What enemies? He laughed, but it held no humor. The kind that don't forget, the kind that tortured me for 6 weeks trying to break me. The kind that are probably still watching, waiting for any opening they can use. Zuri stepped closer, closing the distance he'd tried to maintain. Then we need to be smart, careful, but I'm not walking away from you now that I've found you. You should, but I won't. They stood there under concrete and rain sound, something building between them that felt inevitable and terrifying in equal measure. Come with me, Daewon said finally. There's somewhere we can talk safely, somewhere I can explain everything. Daewon brought her to a secure apartment across the river, in a building with serious security and limited access. Jinwoo waited inside, arms crossed over his chest, expressions somewhere between concerned and disapproving. This is reckless, Jinwoo said flatly, not bothering with pleasantries. Maybe. Daewon shrugged off his wet coat, hanging it near the door. But she deserves the truth about what she's walked into, what I've dragged her into just by existing in her gallery. He turned to Zuri, his expression grave in the apartment's soft lighting. "The people who held me, who tortured me, they're called the Red Wolves. A rival organization in the underground network my father used to run before he died. They wanted information about remaining loyalists, about supply routes, about money my father supposedly hid before his death. When I wouldn't talk, they tried to break me. Not just physically. They damaged something deeper, something fundamental. My body stopped responding to everything." Zuri reached for his hand without thinking. He let her take it, his fingers curling around hers like a lifeline. "Until you," he said quietly, holding her gaze. "You're the only person who brings me back to life, who makes my body remember it's supposed to feel things." Jinwoo's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his expression darkened into something dangerous. "Daewon, we have a problem, a serious one." He held up the phone. Security footage from the gallery, time-stamped 3 hours earlier. It showed Daewon and Zuri, the sculpture falling. The way he'd pulled her close, held her, his body's unmistakable response. The way they'd stood with their lips inches apart. Someone had been watching, recording, cataloging his weakness. The Red Wolves had discovered cameras recording everything. "They've been tracking you for 2 months, Jinwoo said, voice tight. "Following your patterns, waiting for something they could use. But now they know. They know she affects you. They know you respond to her specifically." A second message appeared on screen. Text from an unknown number. "We've found your trigger, Kang Daewon, the black woman from the gallery. We're coming for her. If you want her alive and whole, you'll give us what we want. Territory maps, supplier contacts, every name in your father's network. You have 48 hours. A third message arrived seconds later, making Jinwoo's jaw clench. It was a photo. Zuri leaving her apartment that morning, taken from across the street. The angle suggested a telephoto lens, professional surveillance. We know where she lives, where she works, her daily route, the cafe she stops at every Tuesday, the elderly neighbor she helps with groceries. We know everything. Make the right choice." Daewon's grip on Zuri's hand tightened until it almost hurt, his expression turning to ice. Cold, dangerous. The kind of cold that spoke of violence barely controlled. "If she's targeted," Jinwoo warned, looking between them, "it's because of you. Because she matters to you." "I know." Zuri looked between them, processing fast. "What exactly do they want?" "Territory maps, supply routes, names of everyone still loyal to my father's network. The kind of information that would get hundreds of people killed or imprisoned. That would destroy whatever remains of what my father built. The legitimate parts and the illegitimate parts." Daewon met her eyes. "Information I won't give them, can't give them." "Then we go to the authorities, the police." "The authorities can't touch them." Jinwoo shook his head. "Half the police in this district are bought and paid for by one organization or another. The others lack jurisdiction over organizational disputes. This is a shadow war, Zuri. It doesn't play by legal rules." Outside, an engine revved, loud, deliberate. Tires screeched. Daewon moved to the window instantly, peering carefully through blinds without disturbing them. 3 black SUVs circled the block in a pattern that was clearly meant to be seen, meant to intimidate. "They're watching," he said quietly, voice deadly calm. "Showing us they know where we are, that they can reach us whenever they want." Zuri's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. Unknown number. Come to the alley behind your gallery tomorrow at 8 p.m. alone. Bring no one. Tell no one. Or we burn the silver line to the ground with everyone inside. Your choice. She showed it to Day One. His face went white, then red, then white again, as rage and fear cycled through him. You're not going. If I don't, innocent people get hurt. The gallery staff, visitors, people who have nothing to do with this. If you do, they'll use you against me. They'll hurt you to make me talk, break you to break me. He gripped her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Zuri, listen to me. These people don't negotiate in good faith. They take what they want and destroy everything else. His voice caught. They'll do to you what they did to me. They already destroyed you once. She covered his hands with hers, steady despite her fear. I won't let them finish the job, and I won't let innocent people burn because of me. Then we do this smart, Jinwoo said, already pulling out a different phone. We set a trap. Use her as bait, but with protection. I can have a team. No, Daewon said sharply. No team, no backup. You know how they work, Jinwoo. They'll have watchers, snipers. The second they see anyone but Zuri, they'll either run or escalate. Then what do you suggest? Daewon was quiet for a long moment, mind clearly racing through scenarios. I go instead of her. I'll wear her coat, keep my face hidden until I'm close. By the time they realize it's me and not her, I'll be close enough to act. That's suicide. Maybe. His jaw set with determination. But it keeps her safe. That's all that matters. The alley behind the Silver Line Gallery was narrow, dark, lined with dumpsters and old shipping crates. Harsh yellow light from a single bulb created more shadows than illumination. Zuri arrived at 7:55 p.m., pulse racing in her throat. She'd promised Daewon she would stay in the safe apartment, promised Jinwoo she wouldn't do anything reckless, then slipped out the service entrance while they were arguing about tactical approaches. She wouldn't let Daewon sacrifice himself for her, wouldn't let innocent people burn because she'd brought danger into their lives just by touching someone. This was her choice to make. The Red Wolves emerged from shadows at exactly 8 p.m. 4 men, red wolf tattoos stark on their necks, visible even in bad lighting. They moved with the confidence of predators who'd already won. The leader smiled coldly, all teeth and no warmth. You're the one who makes Kang Daewon lose control, the trigger, the weakness. Zuri lifted her chin, forcing her voice steady. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to us. We have footage, hours of it. We know exactly what you do to him, how his body responds, how his control shatters. He moved closer, deliberately invading her space. You're coming with us. You're our leverage, our insurance policy. A hand grabbed her arm roughly, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. Zuri twisted free, using the self-defense training she'd learned for working in unstable regions. Elbow to ribs, heel to instep, palm strike to nose. She got one man down before the others adapted. But there were too many, too strong, too prepared. One raised a baton, metal catching light. And then Daewon was there. He dropped from the fire escape above like an avenging shadow, landing in a crouch that absorbed the impact. He moved with lethal precision, muscle memory from training she could only guess at, disabling the first man in 2 brutal strikes, disarming the second before he could pull a weapon, slamming the third against brick wall with enough force to crack mortar. But the leader was faster, smarter. He'd been watching, waiting for his opening. He drew a knife, long, serrated, designed to cause maximum damage. The kind of blade that left scars even when it didn't kill. "Day one," Zuri screamed, her voice cutting through the sound of fighting. Day one turned, saw the blade catching light, but his body was already committed to a different motion. Too late to dodge, too late to block. His mind calculated angles and came up with no good options. Time seemed to slow. He saw the blade coming, saw the smile on the leader's face, saw his own death or disfigurement in the arc of that knife. Zuri didn't think, didn't plan, didn't calculate odds or consider consequences. She threw herself forward with everything she had, shielding him with her own body, using her flesh as barrier between the blade and his spine. The knife grazed her shoulder. Not deep, she'd twisted at the last second on instinct, but deep enough. Pain seared through her like liquid fire. Blood bloomed across her shirt, dark and spreading, warm against her skin. She gasped, more from shock than pain. Her knees started to buckle. Daewon froze. His eyes went wide with horror, with rage, with something that looked like his soul shattering. Then something in him detonated. He became violence incarnate. Disarmed the leader in a heartbeat, moved through the remaining men like a storm, each motion precise and devastating. Within 20 seconds, all four were on the ground, subdued, no longer a threat. Daewon himself was injured, a cut on his ribs where someone had gotten lucky, bruises already forming on his arms and face, but he barely seemed to notice or care. He dropped to his knees beside Zuri, hands shaking as they hovered over her bleeding shoulder. "Why? Why would you risk yourself for me? Why would you—" Zuri pressed her hand to her bleeding shoulder, looked at him with fierce clarity despite the pain. "Because I saved you once, and I don't want to lose you again. Not now, not when I just found you." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Jinwoo appeared from the gallery's back entrance, phone raised, face grim. "Police are 2 minutes out, ambulance 90 seconds. We need to move before they start asking questions you can't answer." Daewon lifted Zuri carefully, so carefully, cradling her against his chest like she was made of glass and starlight. "I've got you, I've got you." "I know," she whispered, resting her head against his shoulder. "I've always known." The secure apartment was quiet except for running water in the bathroom. Daewon cleaned Zuri's wound with steady hands, despite the storm raging behind his eyes. The cut wasn't deep, a graze really, though it had bled enough to scare them both half to death. He'd already applied antibiotic ointment, was now carefully placing sterile gauze. His jaw remained tight, his hands remained gentle. "You shouldn't have gone," he said roughly, not looking at her face. "You promised you'd stay here where it was safe." "I lied." Zuri caught his wrist, making him look at her. "And I'd do it again, every time." "You could have died." "So could you." She held his gaze, unflinching. "And I've already lost you once, 14 months of not knowing if you were alive or dead. Searching through files and records, hoping to find any trace of you. I'm not losing you again, not when I just got you back." His hands trembled slightly on the gauze. "I was trained to handle situations like that. You weren't. You put yourself between me and a blade without any protection, without any backup, without any hesitation," she finished. "Because that's what love does, Daewon. It doesn't calculate the odds. It doesn't weigh the risks. it just acts. He went very still. Love? Yes. Her voice was steady, certain. Love, I'm in love with you. Have been since I bandaged your wrists in Busan. Maybe even before that. Maybe from the moment I saw your eyes and knew you were worth fighting for. Zuri, you don't have to say it back. Not yet. Not until you're ready. I just need you to know. I'm not worth— Yes, you are. Her voice turned fierce, brooking no argument. Stop deciding your own value, Daewon. Stop letting what those monsters did to you define who you are. You're more than your trauma, more than your pain. Daewon's hand stilled on the gauze. For a long moment, he just stared at her, something breaking and reforming in his expression. Then he stood abruptly, pulling out his phone. What are you doing? Zuri asked, taking control. His voice had gone cold, dangerous, the voice of someone who'd once commanded an empire. I'm done hiding, done running, done letting them dictate the terms. He made 3 calls in rapid succession, each one clipped and commanding. First, to his remaining network. This is Kang Daewon. I need every asset activated, every contact mobilized. I want eyes on every Red Wolf location in Seoul within the hour. I want movement tracked, patterns logged. I want to know when they breathe. Second, to an old contact in the prosecutor's office, someone who owed his father a significant debt. This is Kang Daewon. I'm ready to testify everything I know about the Red Wolves' operations, trafficking routes, money laundering, corruption networks, all of it, in exchange for immunity for myself and guaranteed protection for Zuri Kamara. Non-negotiable. You have 1 hour to decide. Third, to the Red Wolves' leader directly, voice dropping to something deadly quiet. This is your only warning. You want me? Come and get me. Face me directly. But touch her again, touch Zuri again, and whoever does loses everything. Territory, suppliers, freedom, life. I've just sent everything I know to the prosecutor's office. Every crime, every name. Your entire organization is finished unless you back down. Now. He ended the call and turned to Jinwoo, who'd been listening from the doorway with raised eyebrows. Dismiss the surveillance team around the gallery, Daewon ordered, still in commander mode. I want our people protecting Zuri's workplace openly. Uniforms, visible presence. Let everyone, the Red Wolves especially, see exactly how far I'll go to protect her. Jinwoo nodded slowly, something like pride in his expression. You're declaring war. No. Daewon glanced at Zuri, and his voice softened marginally. I'm declaring what matters. Finally. Within 40 minutes, the apartment phone rang. The prosecutor, his voice crackled through the speaker. The Red Wolves' leadership was arrested 20 minutes ago, based on your initial information and some very motivated detective work. We've seized records that corroborate everything. The organization is effectively dismantled. The threat to you and Miss Kamara is neutralized. Daewon's shoulders sagged with relief, so profound he had to sit down. It was over, really over. Zuri stood slowly, despite her injured shoulder, moving to where Daewon sat with his head in his hands. She placed her uninjured hand on his cheek, thumb brushing along his cheekbone. His body no longer trembled with fear, but with something else. Desire, relief, life itself surging through him. He turned into her touch, eyes closing, his own hand coming up to cover hers. Zuri, my body only comes alive when I'm near you, only feels real when you're touching me. Then stay close, she whispered. Stay with me. He opened his eyes, dark and intense, and full of promises. Always, for as long as you'll have me. That might be a very long time. Good. He stood, pulling her carefully against him, mindful of her shoulder. I'm counting on it. They stood in the dim apartment, city lights shining through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting them both in amber and shadow and possibility. Daewon reached up with both hands, taking her face between his palms like she was something precious. His thumbs brushed her cheeks. There's something you need to understand before this goes any further. Okay. When you touch me, I lose control. His voice dropped low and rough. Not of my mind, I'm not afraid of that, but of my body. Of everything I've kept locked away for 14 months. It's overwhelming, powerful. I feel everything all at once, and it's like drowning and flying at the same time. I'm not afraid of your desire, Daewon. Maybe you should be. He pulled her closer until mere inches separated their bodies, until she could feel the heat radiating from him. Because once I start touching you, really touching you, I won't want to stop, won't be able to stop. Zuri's breath hitched in her throat. Then don't. His eyes searched hers, looking for doubt or fear or hesitation, finding none. Don't touch me unless you really want to take the rest of me. All of me. The broken parts and the healing parts and everything in between. She smiled then, slow and certain, reaching up, despite her injured shoulder, to wrap her arms around his neck. She pulled him down toward her. I want all of it, all of you. They kissed, not soft, not tentative, not careful. A kiss filled with 14 months of fear and repression and desire finally unleashed. His hands slid into her hair, careful of her injury, angling her head for deeper access. She gasped against his mouth, and he swallowed the sound, pulling her tighter against him with desperate need. His body responded fully, no shame, no holding back, no more pretending. This was want, this was need, this was life itself, flooding through veins that had run cold for so long. She tasted like hope and home, like promises kept and futures possible. Her hands slid down his chest, feeling every hard plane, every tremor that ran through him. His heart thundered under her palm, alive, so alive. When they finally broke apart for air, both breathing hard, neither could look away. His eyes were dark, pupils blown wide. Her lips were swollen, her cheeks flushed. That was, she started. Everything, he finished. That was everything. Daewon rested his forehead against hers, his hands still framing her face, thumbs stroking along her jaw with infinite tenderness. I love you, he whispered, the words raw and new and terrifying. I think I loved you from the moment you bandaged my wrists in that tent and told me I'd feel again. I just didn't understand it, couldn't name it, until you touched me again, and everything came back at once. Zuri's eyes filled with tears, happy ones, overflowing. I love you too. I've loved you since the night I watched you choose to keep breathing when letting go would have been so much easier. You're the bravest person I know. They kissed again, slower this time, deeper, full of promise and healing, and tomorrows neither had expected to have. And for the first time in 14 months, Daewon didn't feel broken. He felt whole. He felt home. 3 months later, on a snowy December evening, the Silver Line Gallery hosted its winter exhibition, a celebration of new beginnings and second chances. Snow drifted past tall windows like falling stars. Inside, warmth and golden light spilled across polished floors, catching on crystal and canvas. Zuri stood beside a new painting that held pride of place, a landscape of Busan's coastline at dawn, waves catching first light, the sky painted in shades of hope. Daewon had commissioned it as a gift for her, a memory transformed from darkness into beauty, a map back to where their story began. He approached from behind, slipping his arms around her waist, with the ease of someone who'd earned that intimacy. She leaned into him instinctively, smiling at their reflection in the window. "Still feels like a dream sometimes," she murmured. "Good dream or bad. The very best kind, the kind I never want to wake up from." He pressed a kiss to her temple, lingering there, breathing in the shea oil scent that had become synonymous with home. "Then don't. Stay here with me. Forever, if you're willing." Across the room, Jinwoo stood with Bae Solki, the gallery owner from next door who'd cooperated with authorities once her minor involvement with the Red Wolves came to light. She'd apologized genuinely, with tears and trembling hands. Zuri had accepted because forgiveness wasn't always easy, but it was always possible, always worth trying. The Red Wolves' leadership was serving consecutive sentences in 3 different facilities. The organization itself had fractured, scattered, lost all cohesion and power. Daewon had walked away clean, his testimony buying freedom for himself and guaranteed protection for everyone he loved. He'd even started legitimate business ventures, art dealing, gallery consulting, using his eye for beauty and his network of contacts for something that helped rather than harmed. Daewon pulled Zuri closer, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Your mother called this morning." "Did she? What did Mama want?" "She wants to know when we're visiting Dakar." His voice held a smile she could hear. "And when exactly we're planning to give her grandchildren." She was quite specific about that part. Zuri laughed, full and genuine, turning in his arms to face him. "That's very forward of her, though knowing Mama, subtle has never been her strong suit." "Is it?" His expression turned serious, tender, full of hope and possibility. "Because I've been wondering the same thing. Not the timing necessarily, but the future, our future. If you want one with me." Her breath caught. "Daewon." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket with hands that trembled slightly, opened it. A simple gold band with a single black opal, her birthstone, gleaming dark and mysterious and beautiful. "I'm not asking you to join my world," he said quietly, words chosen with care. "I'm asking to build ours, something new, something safe, something completely ours. A family, a life, everything I thought I'd lost forever. Everything I didn't think I deserved until you showed me different." Tears spilled down her cheeks, catching light. "Yes, yes to all of it." He slipped the ring onto her finger with reverent care, then kissed her knuckles one by one. "You saved me twice, once in Busan, once in that alley. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret either choice." "I won't, I couldn't." He took her in his arms, held her close, rested his forehead against hers, in the gesture that had become theirs. "You're not my weakness, you never were. You're my life, my heart, my home." Zuri smiled through her tears. "And you're the one I was always meant to save. The one I'll keep choosing every day for the rest of my life." They stood together in the gallery, surrounded by art and light, and friends who'd become family. and the quiet promise of a future rebuilt from ashes into something beautiful. Later, they walked home through snow that fell gentle and clean, hand in hand. The city glowing soft around them, transformed by winter into something magical. So, Zuri said, glancing up at him with mischief in her eyes, about those grandchildren Mama wants. Daewon laughed, a sound of pure, unfiltered joy that echoed off buildings. One step at a time, my love, wedding first, though knowing your mother and Jinwoo, they're probably already planning that too. Fair enough. She squeezed his hand, this man who'd come back to life at her touch. Though I should warn you, my family plans big celebrations. Very big. Good, we have a lot to celebrate. They kissed under a street light, snow falling gentle around them like a blessing. This was the most inspirational truth Zuri had ever learned. That love doesn't fix everything magically, doesn't erase scars or undo trauma, but it makes everything, all the pain, all the fear, all the hard work of healing, worth fighting for, worth surviving for. That healing isn't linear or simple. It's messy and hard, and sometimes you backslide into old fears. But with the right person beside you, holding your hand through the darkness, you keep moving forward, one step at a time, one choice at a time. Daewon's body had come back to life when Zuri touched him that first time in the gallery, but his heart, his soul, had come alive the moment she chose to stay, the moment she shielded him in that alley, the moment she looked at him and saw not a broken man, but a whole one. And that was the romance worth believing in. Not perfect, not without scars or struggles, but real and true and entirely theirs. A love that conquered fear, a love that chose healing, a love that promised tomorrow and meant it. If this story moved you, consider subscribing for more stories of healing, hope, and love that conquers fear. Share in the comments which moment touched your heart most. Was it the sculpture scene where he saved her, the alley confrontation where she shielded him, or the snow-lit proposal? Thank you for spending these 60 minutes with Zuri and Daewon's journey, from trauma to healing to love. May we all find the courage to choose love even when it scares us, to choose healing even when it's hard, to choose each other every single day. Until next time.